This happened a couple of months ago. I was 32 and desperate for cash. I used to be a mechanic, but the shop went under, and I lost my job. A friend suggested a logging job in the Yukon. I thought it sounded like an adventure. I packed my bags, thinking a change of scenery might help. When I arrived at the camp, it was rough. The loggers were older, their faces lined and weathered. The camp was small, made of worn wood, surrounded by towering trees. At night, it got really quiet. That quiet made me uneasy, but I told myself it was just the woods on my second night. I heard whispers coming from the shadows. I slipped out of my cabin, nervous but curious. The other loggers were huddled together, talking softly. I moved closer, trying to catch some of their conversation. I heard them mention the rules. They looked scared. They warned about logging the wrong spots, but they never explained why. It felt strange, but I brushed it off. Maybe it was just camp humor. The next day, I started working. My tools kept disappearing. One moment my chainsaw was by my side, and the next it was gone. The guys laughed and said it happened sometimes. I tried to ignore it, but a feeling crept over me. I felt like I was being watched. I would be cutting a log and hear whispers behind me. I D-turn, but there was no one there. My heart raced. Then I learned about the loggers who went missing. They wander off into the woods and never come back. The guys grew more paranoid, marking trees with red paint and avoiding certain areas. I felt out of place. I wasn't one of them. Why was I even here? As I tried to fit in, I wandered a bit too far one day. I just wanted to familiarize myself with the woods. I walked into a dense area and heard something, a low growl. I froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. I couldn't see anything. Felt like I wasn't alone. That night I couldn't sleep. My heart was pounding. I listened to deliberate footsteps outside my cabin. I held my breath. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Then a voice cut through the darkness. "You can't leave." It didn't sound like any of the loggers. I turned to the window, and the shadows outside seemed to get closer. That I wish I could say I left the camp that night. But I couldn't. Instead, I stayed, feeling the weight of the weird rules hanging around me. Each day felt like a blend of dread and confusion. I didn't know what was watching me or what rules I had broken. All I knew was I was stuck and scared, living among the whispers of the woods. The Yukon logs bore no marks, yet I felt them marking me. I never understood the rules, and they didn't care to explain. The next morning, I decided I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I had to push through the strange sensation that surrounded me. I grabbed my gear and headed out, determined to focus on my work. The cold air bit at my skin, but I wrapped my jacket tighter around me and trudged toward the woods. The site was marked for logging, and as I began cutting, I noticed something different. The trees here felt off, almost unnatural. I could swear they leaned away from me, as if they were trying to avoid my chainsaw. Then, I spotted a tree with markings carved into its bark. They were strange symbols, almost like warnings. I leaned in closer, feeling a chill creep down my spine. "Hey you! Get away from there!" One of the older loggers, Frank, shouted from across the clearing. I stepped back, startled. "What's wrong with this tree?" He shook his head, eyes narrow. "That's one of the marked trees. It's bad news, boy. Stay clear." I felt my pulse quicken. "But why? What's the harm?" Frank's face hardened. "You don't want to know. Just don't touch it again." I wanted to ask more, but he walked away, his heavy boots stomping through the leaves. I glanced back at the tree, feeling drawn to it. Did the markings mean something? What would happen if I didn't listen? I pushed those thoughts aside and returned to my work, though the whispers seemed louder now. It wasn't just in my head. I could hear them clearly. They swirled around like the wind, fading in and out, just beneath the sound of my chainsaw. But today I was determined to ignore them. I focused on the task, my mind churning with questions. When break time rolled around, I took a moment to clear my head. I sat with a few of the other loggers, but the usual banter was absent. Instead, everyone glanced nervously at the trees, every now and then sharing a fearful look. One younger guy, Mike, hesitated before speaking. You guys notice how quiet it's getting? The birds they haven't been singing much lately. I followed his gaze. The woods felt strangely still. The sunlight filtered through the branches in golden rays, but it felt wrong. I fidgeted, uneasy in my own skin. That's what happens when you break the rules, Frank spoke quietly, returning to the group. The woods don't take kindly to it. Better pray it stays like this. Stays like what? I asked, tension rising in my throat. Frank leaned in, lowering his voice. When it gets too quiet, something's watching. And when you hear the whispers, well, that's when you should be worried. Before I could respond, the wind shifted, sending a rush of cold air through the trees. I shivered and looked around, half expecting to see something lurking just out of sight. That's when I noticed the woods weren't just quiet. They were waiting. Suddenly, a distant roar shattered the silence. The ground shook beneath us. My heart dropped. I felt panic surge through me. What was that? The loggers exchanged terrified glances, and Frank shouted, "Get back to camp now." We didn't need to be told twice. We sprinted through the trees, adrenaline propelling us forward. As I dashed, I stole a glance back. The woods felt alive, shadows moving as if something was chasing us. Then everything went dark. When I came to, I was lying on the ground, disoriented. My head throbbed, and the cool earth felt oddly comforting against my skin. I pushed myself up slowly, scanning the area as my heart raced. The other loggers were nowhere in sight. "Hello?" I called out, my voice feeling small against the towering trees. Silence enveloped me, heavy and unsettling. I jumped to my feet, trying to shake off the fog in my mind. Frank? Mike? Nothing. Just the whisper of leaves in the breeze. Panic gripped me. I took a few unsteady steps, glancing around, looking for any sign of my coworkers. The clearing where we escaped was gone, replaced by a dense thicket. I could feel my throat tighten. I needed to find my way back. As I walked deeper into the woods, I felt the weight of the silence again. The whispers were back, darting around the edges of my hearing. Sometimes they sounded like laughter, and other times they were simply unintelligible murmurs. I rubbed my arms, trying to dispel the chill creeping over me. Then something caught my eye. It was the tree with the markings. Somehow I had wandered back to it. The symbols were more vivid now, almost glowing. I reached out, my hand trembling. I wanted to touch the carvings, to understand their meaning, but the memory of Frank's warning held me back. Just then, a rustling noise echoed nearby. My heart raced again, and I spun around, searching for the source. The trees seemed to hold their breath, as if they were waiting for something to happen. The rustling grew closer, and I instinctively ducked behind the marked tree, pressing myself against its rough bark. That's when I saw it. A figure stepped through the trees, a woman, her long hair wild and tangled. She looked unearthly, her clothes adorned with leaves and patches of bark. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I felt drawn to her, but also terrified. "Beware the tree," she whispered, and her voice seemed to harmonize with the whispers around me. "It knows you now." I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but before I could speak, she lifted her hand suddenly, silence washing over everything. The birds resumed their songs, but the atmosphere felt heavy with dread. The woods felt like they were closing in. I felt trapped. "What do you want from me?" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. She took a step closer, her expression unreadable. "You must choose. Leave the forest or confront what is hidden." I swallowed hard, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "And if I stay, then the whispers will grow loud," she said. "And you will not be alone." I wanted to ask so much more, but before I could form another word, the world around me started to darken again. Shadows twisted, and I felt my heart thrum wildly. It was happening again. Then, silence. I was all alone, with only the echo of her warning ringing in my ears. Was I ready to confront whatever lay hidden in the woods? I took a deep breath. The choice loomed before me, and I could feel the tree behind me pulse as if it were alive. What was I going to do? With a deep breath, I stepped away from the tree, my heart pounding. I had to make a choice, but I wasn't ready. I glanced around, hoping for some sign, some clarity. The woods felt alive, and I could almost sense their anticipation. The air was thick and heavy, as if the trees themselves were watching me. I rubbed my arms again, trying to shake the overwhelming chill. The woman's warning echoed in my mind, mingling with the whispers that danced just out of reach. Leave the forest or confront what is hidden. The words twisted in my stomach. I couldn't just leave. Not without Frank and Mike. But confronting whatever was hidden felt like chasing shadows. That I took a cautious step forward. Hello? Is anyone out there? No response. Just silence deeper than before. The whispers had faded, now replaced by a dull thud in my chest. Then I spotted something on the ground, a gleam of metal. I hurried over and crouched down. It was a small axe, rusty and worn, but still usable. My heart leaped for a moment. Maybe I can cut samples from this tree, I thought, or defend myself if I need to. As I picked it up, I caught a fleeting glimpse of movement. Something darted between the trees, just beyond my vision. I froze, gripping the axe tightly. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice trembling. Silence followed. My breath came fast. I didn't want to be alone. I turned back to the marked tree, its carvings now looking more ominous than before. "What are you hiding?" I whispered, as if my words could draw forth the answers. Suddenly, a sharp rattling noise pierced the air. I jerked around, adrenaline surging through me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw shadows slipping between the trees. They were shifting, gathering, with forms that seemed almost human. Panic rose within me like bile. "Get away!" I yelled, swinging the axe toward the darkness. But nothing responded. The shadows only danced further back, teasing me with their movement. I felt a deep sense of dread settling in. Not only was I lost in the woods, but something unseen was watching me, hiding, waiting. That's when I noticed something gleaming on the ground again, just a few feet away. It was a small, wooden carving of a figure, intricately detailed, resembling the woman I had encountered. Fear coursed through me, but I felt an undeniable pull toward it. I reached down instinctively. As soon as my fingers brushed the smooth surface, a rush of visions flooded my mind. The whispers returned, louder now, a cacophony of voices. I saw flashes of colored light and felt the world around me pulse as if synchronizing with my own heartbeat. Then everything went dark. I gasped, stumbling backward as the visions faded, but not before grasping one clear thought. I wasn't alone. Not in the forest, and not with anything lurking in the shadows. Just as the weight of that realization sank in, I heard something behind me. A low growl that sent electric chills down my spine. I wasn't sure what I had awakened, but I had a feeling I was about to find out. I spun around, gripping the axe like it was my only lifeline. The growl was deep, rumbling through the silence, cutting right into my chest. I could barely breathe. Shadows shifted closer, inching toward me with a menacing grace. I was running out of time. "Stay back," I shouted, not even sure what I was facing. The growl transformed into a low snarl that seemed to echo among the trees. My instincts screamed for me to run, to get out, but my feet were glued to the ground. I tightened my grip on the axe and looked for a way out. A path could be behind me, but the idea of turning my back on whatever lurked out there seemed like a death sentence. Instead, I took a few measured steps to the side, trying to survey my surroundings, my eyes darting to every twitch of the branches. That's when I spotted a flicker of movement. A large shape slipped silently, blending into the shadows. My heart raced as I focused on it, trying to catch a glimpse. It had long limbs and a sleek outline, like an animal but too streamlined, too intelligent. That I held my breath. The growling stopped, replaced by an eerie silence, almost as if the forest itself was holding its breath with me. Then, the shape emerged, stepping into a soft light that filtered through the canopy. What I saw made my heart stop. It resembled a wolf, but it was impossibly large, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Its fur shimmered with an array of colors, currents of greens and blues swirling like smoke. I had never seen anything like it. It took a step toward me, its snout low to the ground, assessing. I stumbled back, instinctively lifting the axe. I had to protect myself, but part of me was paralyzed in wonder and fear. "Please," I whispered, not knowing if it could even understand. "I don't mean any harm." The creature paused, sniffing the air. A low growl emanated from it, but I noticed something else. Curiosity flickered in its eyes, not just aggression. I could hardly believe it. Then the shadows shifted again. Another figure emerged from the dark, a girl, maybe around my age, wearing a ragged dress made of leaves and twigs. Her hair, wild and tangled, seemed to blend with the forest around her. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice a soft melody that contrasted sharply with my pounding heart. "What? Who are you?" I stammered, still watching the wolf. It hadn't moved yet. "There are rules. You need to understand them," she replied, her gaze steady on me. "You've awakened something that can't be put back to sleep." "What do you mean?" "I don't want any trouble. I just came looking for my friends," I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. The wolf shifted closer, eyes locked on mine. The girl didn't move to intervene. Instead, she seemed to be waiting, gauging my reaction. Suddenly, the ground beneath us trembled slightly, and I noticed dark fissures forming in the earth, black threads of something thick and tar-like seeping up. It was spreading quickly. "What is that?" I gasped. The girl's face paled. "The forest is angry. You must choose, leave now or stay and face the consequence." As those ominous words hung in the air, the forest reacted with a low rumble. I realized with a chilling dread that whatever choice I made, it would change everything. I wasn't ready for this. I glanced back at the growing darkness, the creeping tendrils of the tar-like substance slithering toward us. The wolf shifted, its nose twitching as it assessed the threat, and I could feel the tension heavy in the air. Okay, I stammered, trying to think straight. "What do I do? Just leave?" I took a cautious step back, but the girl's eyes widened in alarm. "Not like that," she exclaimed. "If you turn your back, you'll never escape." The urgency in her voice sent a chill down my spine. "Then what?" I felt my heart racing. "What happens if I stay?" "The forest punishes those who awaken what should remain hidden." She clenched her fists, glancing nervously at the wolf. "It wants you to prove your worth. You can't just walk away." "Prove my worth?" I was standing in a dark forest, facing an enormous magical wolf, and I was supposed to prove something? I needed a plan, but I was fumbling in the darkness, chasing after threads of thoughts that slipped away whenever I reached for them. "Can you help me?" I asked, desperation creeping back into my voice. "What does it want? How can I fix this?" The girl took a deep breath, her gaze flickering between me and the wolf. "You need to understand its nature. It guards the forest. Show respect and you may be spared." The wolf let out a low growl again, shifting slightly, and I felt my grip tighten on the axe. "Respect?" I asked. "What does that even mean?" "Offer something," she replied, her voice steadying. "Donate what you value most. Could be the key to your safety." My mind raced. What did I have? The axe was just a tool, and I couldn't part with anything intangible like courage or hope. Then it hit me, I could offer my knowledge. It might not seem like much, but I had spent years learning about the land and the creatures that called it home. "I can share what I know," I declared, both to myself and the imposing wolf. "I know the legends of this place. I can tell stories of what the forest means to the people who lived here." A flicker of interest sparked in the wolf's eyes, and I almost felt a subtle shift in its stance. The girl nodded but remained guarded. "It may accept that, but be prepared, it will test your resolve. Speak with honesty." I took a deep breath, summoning whatever courage I could muster. "All right," I said, moving slowly to keep the wolf calm. "I'll give it a try." As I prepared to speak, I noticed the shadows thickening, coiling tighter around us, driven by the forest's restless energy. I raised my voice, letting it ring with sincerity. "I come from a people who respect the land, who believe in the stories it holds." Suddenly, the ground shook more violently, and in that moment of distraction, I saw something on the ground, shimmering light breaking through the growing darkness. I took a step closer, drawn to it. That S when I saw it, a fading vision of my friends, trapped like fireflies in a jar, their faces contorted in fear. Panic surged through me. They needed me. Please, let them go. I shouted, a surge of desperation flooding my mind. The wolf paused, considering my plea, and I realized I had crossed into something deeper than I ever imagined. Whatever fate was about to unfold, it was going to test everything I had. The wolf's attention shifted back to me, its eyes filled with an intensity that pierced through the dim light. I could feel the weight of its gaze, and my heart raced. I'd never faced anything like this before, and the stakes just went up. Your friends are caught in a web of shadows, the girl said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's tied to the forest and its secrets. But to save them, you have to confront the darkness. Confronting darkness? Not exactly my idea of a fun evening. But I had no choice. What does that mean? I asked, more to keep my mind from spiraling than anything else. There is a path, she replied, pointing toward a branching path that I hadn't noticed before. Follow it, but be wary. It will test your spirit. Stay true, and you may find a way to free them. Hesitation clawed at me. Taking a step onto that path felt like jumping into a pit of uncertainty. But as I glanced back at the glowing vision of my friends, the fear on their faces ignited a fire within me. I couldn't abandon them. All right, I said, trembling as I moved toward the path. The wolf followed, its massive form casting an imposing shadow that seemed to swallow the dim light. With every step I took, I felt the air grow colder, as if the very forest was trying to push me back. The girl yelled after us. Remember, speak the truth, and trust in your knowledge. It's your only weapon here. We entered the darkness, the trees around us twisting and shuddering, almost alive, as if whispering secrets I couldn't decipher. I kept the wolf in my periphery, careful not to make any sudden movements. My mind flooded with stories, the legends I'd learned, the tales of bravery and sacrifice. What could I offer that would resonate with a creature of such immense power? Please, I know stories, I said, more to reassure myself than anything. I've listened to the winds and the rivers. I understand the balance of this forest. The wolf growled softly, a warning that felt like thunder in my chest. I pressed on. There is a tale of a great spirit, one that protected the land by keeping the darkness at bay. As I spoke, the shadows around us twisted and writhed, swirling like storm clouds. Felt like they were listening, waiting. But the path ahead began to shift, and the air grew heavy. I stumbled, ready to fall, but the wolf stood firm, its body steadying me. But then everything changed. The ground beneath me gave way, and I found myself sliding down a steep incline, pulled into the depths of the forest. The swirling shadows grew chaotic, and I realized I was falling into something else entirely. Then I heard them. Help! It was my friends' voices echoing, distant but heart-wrenching. Panic flared in my chest as I fought to regain my balance. Hold on. I'm coming, I yelled, grappling for the edges of the new nightmare unfolding. I landed on a damp patch of ground surrounded by a darkness deeper than I could handle. The wolf leaped down beside me, stance unwavering. I had to intensify my efforts. The memories of the stories I cherished flooded my mind. Once, a hero faced the darkness like this and emerged stronger. I began, my voice taking on a rhythm that echoed off the unseen walls. If I can find my courage, if I can embrace the stories of this world, then so can they. Then, as if drawn by my words, the swirling darkness began to shift, revealing a faint glow ahead. But before I could make sense of it, I saw shapes emerging from the shadows. More lost souls? Or guardians? Whatever they were drawing closer. The urgency struck me hard. Whatever fate awaited, it was no longer just about proving my worth. It was about saving my friends, and the clock was ticking. The shapes in the darkness grew clearer. They were figures, draped in tattered, shadowy garments that flowed around them like smoke. Fear rippled through me as their hollow eyes turned toward the glow. It was unnerving, as if they were drawn to it yet repelled at the same time. Who are you? I called out, my voice shaking against the cold air. Where are my friends? One figure stepped forward, its features indiscernible. You seek truth, yet you tread on the edge of falsehood. The voice was low, echoing like distant thunder. What you offer might not be enough. I swallowed hard, feeling a knot of dread knot in my stomach. Can't leave them. I have stories that can guide us. If I can just reach the light, stories hold power, the figure responded, raising a thin, bony finger toward the glow. But they must come from your heart, not just your memory. Speak the truth, and it will reveal the path. The pressure intensified. My throat felt tight as the weight of responsibility crushed down. What if the truth isn't enough? What if I get it wrong? The figure's eyes flickered, a spark of empathy. Then the shadows will consume you. You must embrace your truth, however fractured. The other figures moved closer, their presence closing in around me. I could feel their energy, a blend of desperation and anticipation. They wanted to escape as much as I did, looking to me for direction. That S when I saw it, a shimmering outline in the glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. It wasn't just a light. It was a doorway or an exit. Hope surged within me, mixed with an unfamiliar urgency. If I could just get there, I felt the wolf's warmth brush against my leg, grounding me. You need to tell them, it urged, its deep voice a rumble against my skin. Let go of the fear. Speak what lies deep inside. For a moment I hesitated. I could feel the figures pressing closer, their anticipation palpable. I had to find a way to reach the doorway, to turn the stories of the past into a lifeline. My friends depended on me. That I took a deep breath and let the words flow out. There was a time when darkness chased a young girl. She fought against it with nothing but her heart. She learned that courage doesn't mean lack of fear. It means facing it anyway. She believed that friendship could overcome anything. As I shared her story, the shadows twisted and swirled around me. The figures shifted, revealing more of themselves as if my words had unlocked something within them. Their eyes brightened, reflecting fragments of light. Keep going, the wolf urged, its presence steadying me. Your truth is powerful. They need to know. Together, they discovered their strengths. I continued, my heart pounding. Together, they took back the night, illuminating the shadows with their bonds. The doorway pulsated, growing brighter with each beat of my heart. Then, suddenly, a scream erupted from one of the figures, a piercing cry that sliced through the air like glass. I turned, dread washing over me. Something was wrong. The shadows behind them moved, shifting like quicksand. I had only a fleeting moment to comprehend this new threat. It was growing, a wave of darkness that threatened to swallow everything whole. Run! I shouted, but the figures hesitated, frozen in fear. I needed to act. Trust in your strength. Follow me. The glow beckoned me forward, but I knew the real battle was just beginning, and time was running out. My heart raced as the darkness loomed closer, creeping in with an unsettling presence. I could feel its chill wrapping around me, and instinct kicked in. Now! I shouted, fear lending urgency to my voice. I sprinted toward the glow, my feet pounding against the ground as I beckoned the figures behind me. They needed to follow, but the figures huddled together, torn between the safety of their shadows and the unknown path I offered. You must trust me, I pleaded, glancing back at their fading forms. Together we can break free. One figure took a step forward, slowly emerging from the shadows. It was a woman, her eyes reflecting both fear and determination. What if we can't? She said, her voice trembling like leaves in the wind. My stomach twisted. You have to find your truth. You have to let it guide you. As I spoke, the wolf nudged my leg again, its presence a steady flame in the gathering darkness. Don't let doubt creep in. Remember the girl's story. She didn't stand alone. In that moment, I realized that my own truth had to shine through as well. I had to lead by example. There's a place beyond this darkness. A place where we will be safe again. I can't promise it will be easy, but it will be worth it. I believe in you all. I felt a spark of hope ignite within me. If they could hear my conviction, perhaps they could find their own courage. I turned back to the doorway, its light beckoning like a lighthouse for lost ships. The air felt thick with weighted anticipation, but I knew I couldn't hesitate now. Then, I heard a low rumbling sound, like stones shifting beneath a great weight. The ground trembled slightly, and I could feel the energy of the figures around me start to shift. "We can do this together," I yelled, reaching out my hand toward the woman and the others. "Don't allow fear to bind you any longer." Her face softened, and with a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay, let us go." With renewed resolve, she took a step toward me, and one by one, the others began to follow. I felt a rush of relief but didn't let it distract me. We had to reach the light before the shadows could reclaim us. Just as we made the decision to run, the ground quaked violently beneath our feet. Dark shadows reached out like tendrils, grasping and pulling, trying to drag us back. With my heart in my throat, I shouted, "Run, now!" We dashed toward the doorway, but I could hear the screams of the figures as some fell behind. I had to make a choice. Would I turn back to save them, or would I follow the light? In a split second, I yelled toward the darkness, "Fight! Fight for each other!" I glanced back to see if they heard me. The woman looked back, her eyes shining with determination. "We won't let go of hope," she shouted back. We surged forward as the figures rallied behind me, yet the darkness was relentless. Something sharp grazed my arm, and I stumbled, nearly falling to the ground. Panic surged, but I quickly pushed myself up. The doorway loomed ever closer, shining like a beacon of safety, but the pull of the shadows was growing stronger. The howl of darkness surrounded us and filled my lungs with dread. Then, just as I reached for the light, a voice from the abyss called out, low and menacing, "You will pay for this trespass." I froze, my breath hitching. I turned slowly, meeting the eyes of a figure far larger than the others, stepping toward us from the dark. It didn't belong here. Felt wrong. My heart skipped as I wondered what this new threat meant for our escape. I could almost feel the shadowy figure's malice seeping into the air. My instincts screamed at me to flee, but I stood paralyzed. The giant silhouette loomed, a warped reflection of the forest's wrath. Whatever this thing was, it was the embodiment of every whispered warning I had ignored. "The forest does not forgive trespassers," it growled, its voice deep and reverberating through my bones. Panic shot through me, tightening my chest. The woman, the girl with the tattered dress, took a step closer to me, her eyes full of fear but somehow steady. "You mustn't lose hope," she whispered, though I could barely hear her over the raging shadows. That I wanted to argue, to scream, to demand that I escape with my friends, to shout that I hadn't signed up for any of this. But the truth of her words hit me hard. Fighting back trepidation, I turned decisively to the figures behind me, urging them, "Don't look back. Keep moving. We can make it," I shouted. The glow of the doorway flickered as if it were listening, and with every word, I felt the grip of the darkness tighten around my legs. The shadow grew more aggressive, its form shifting, twisting into grotesque snarls. "You could have easily turned back," it taunted, manifesting doubt and regret in the air between us. "It's not too late." My heart raced, but every ounce of fear was drowned out by the warmth of solidarity. The wolf at my side leaned close, a steadfast protector as the shadows surged closer, seeking to pull us into the depths of despair. "No," I shouted defiantly. "I will not be trapped here. None of us will." I felt the rising resolve swelling within me, something primal and powerful. The doorway called like a lighthouse to a confused ship lost in a storm. I focused my thoughts on truth, on every story I held dear, readying my voice. I believe in the strength of my friends, in the stories that bind us all together. We choose hope over despair. In that moment, the giant figure faltered, its dark eyes narrowing in surprise. I didn't wait. I surged forward, gripping the hands of those nearest to me. "Together," I yelled, recalling the girl with the wild hairless words about truth and courage. "Let us fight back." As if responding to my rallying cry, The doorway blazed brighter, pushing back the darkness. The figures behind me united their voices, chanting with me, sharing their own stories of courage and resolve. Unbeknownst to me, the power of our combined voices lit up the space around us, illuminating the path ahead. The shadow creature lunged, but we didn't hesitate. The shining doorway pulsed rhythmically, guiding our way as we raced toward it, hands linked together. The air crackled with energy, and I felt the weight of each figure around me fortifying me against the massive shadows clawing desperately at our backs as we approached the edge of the doorway. A surge of swirling light enveloped us, while the whispers dulled to a soft melody. I felt vitality tingle through my limbs, an electric charge that empowered my every step. The darkness threatened to entangle us, but I pressed forward, grabbing hold of the last flicker of light. Finally, we burst through, colliding into an open clearing bathed in warm sunlight. I fell to my knees, gasping for breath, but I felt triumph transcending the darkness and the whispers that had haunted me. The figures scattered, but I could still feel their presence lingering behind me, whispering encouragement. But as I looked back, the clearing was already starting to fade, shadows creeping back toward the doorway we just escaped. Had we truly escaped? Would they reclaim what we had left behind in that sinister forest? The questions loomed around me like dewdrops on a spider web, delicate yet heavy. With the oppressive weight of uncertainty fogging my mind, I staggered to my feet, glancing around for signs of my friends and the giant wolf. Yet all I saw was a forest distorting in the distance, its familiarity replaced by an eerie silence. I still held the rusty axe tightly, the only tangible reminder of my ordeal, filled with the lingering essence of the supernatural battle fought. That I moved cautiously, heart racing as I stepped away from where we had emerged. Somehow, I knew none of us would be the same again. As I stepped onto the path leading away, the questions echoed in my thoughts, the unanswered queries of what happened in those woods, what lay in wait, and whether I'd ever truly understand the consequences of that choice and no turning back. I took a deep breath and walked on, heart heavy with memories, but also with the glimmer of hope. I would carry our stories forward and face whatever shadows awaited in the unknown. I didn't have answers, yet I found comfort in the uncertainty. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes, I think of that forest, of the ash and tendrils of darkness, of the friends I had tried to save. I can still hear the whispers, sometimes in the corner of my mind, snaking through the underbrush of memory. Maybe the stories would fade, but I knew I'd never forget the weight of that choice, the shadows I faced, and the unseen price of what it means to truly confront the darkness.